easy being your own tech team. This is 2 nights in a row. Trish Regan has forgotten her. If it wasn't for you guys, thank you for telling me. You're funny. What is this? Talk slower so we can read your lips. No sound. Carolyn, thank you. Band saying no sound. You know, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for telling me because, ooh, yikes. What did we just have on there? Got to be careful what I press here too. Anyway, it's good to have all of you here this evening. The president is playing hardball. The president is saying, Nancy Pelosi, take a hike. When it comes to stimulus, if you're not willing to actually negotiate like an adult here, then we're not going to have a negotiation. I mean, he's dealing with coronavirus himself, right? He was tweeting from the hospital saying, please get a deal done. They couldn't get a deal done. He claims she's not negotiating in good faith. So he's like, okay, we'll see how this goes. We're not going to have a stimulus program until after I'm reelected. She will try and milk this, mind you, for all it is worth. She's going to say the president's not playing ball. He's the one that's digging in his heels. But let's not forget what she was pitching in her stimulus plan, right? She wanted something that was 3 times the size of what anyone in the Senate wanted. She actually said she wanted money for illegal immigrants. I'm sorry, but, you know, the nation is in kind of a tough spot. And while I don't want to see anyone suffer, it seems to me that if you're going to prioritize right now, you ought to prioritize the small mom and pop businesses. You ought to prioritize the small individuals, right, that need the help. Because we've got people that are teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and Nancy Pelosi is out there saying, no, we got to have this money for this pet project and this pet project. Come on, all right? Come on. Let's act like an adult for a change. Anyway, the president's saying, I am going to focus entirely, I am encouraging Mitch McConnell to focus entirely on the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, right? Because they don't want her being confirmed. And they're threatening that if she is confirmed, what are they going to do? They're going to pack the court with more justices. This is pretty wild stuff, okay? These are things that are so out there on the fringe that we wouldn't, you know, FDR tried this many, many years ago. Nobody had bothered really since. I mean, it's been talked about, but everybody kind of knows better. Well, FDR tried it. I mean, he was shot down by his own party. It's so good to have you all here. Cindy Somerville. Trump is the master of playing hardball. Yeah, he's playing hardball, I would say. Ciao. John, good to have you here. You'd be paying for the stimulus anyway. You're right. You know, that's an important point. Can we even afford it? Can we even afford it? You know, I don't know if you guys saw the Fed chair speaking today, Fed Chairman Powell. He's like, we have to have it. If we don't have stimulus, we are in major, major economic trouble. Well, did you see the last jobs report? 7.9% unemployment? And we don't even have everything open yet. So what does this tell you? It tells you that if you have the right policies in place, where there's a will, there's a way. Right? 7.9%. I mean, Jerome Powell didn't think we were going to get to 8%, 8.4%, which we saw in the last month, until the end of the year. So we are blowing away their expectations in terms of traditional economic thought. All we need to be able to do is go back and live our lives to the best of our ability. I mean, we're not reckless. They ought to have some faith in us, right, as individuals. That's what cracks me up about all this. On the left right now, they have a tendency, shall we say, they're always pointing the finger saying conservatives are fascists. They have a tendency to be extremely authoritarian, right? You all have to wear a mask. We're shutting everything down. You know, they are the ones that want to tell you how to live your life as they see fit. They can't ever just back away and say, okay, you know, I trust you. How about trusting the individual right now who doesn't want to get sick? You think we want to get sick? I mean, come on, give us a little credit, please. I mean, how about trusting the individual businesses? They don't want to have, you know, an infection rate that stems from their place of business. So they have an incentive too. But, you know, it just means that government has to actually rely on individuals. And I think too often right now, especially now, the left has been corrupted in such a way that the individual, the value of the individual is completely gone. And so Donald Trump, you know, valuing himself as an individual, said, I'm not going to play this game. forget about it. I mean, he's still recovering from COVID. And Nancy Pelosi wants this tit for tat holding up everything. You can't do that. Okay? You just can't do that. There's a time and a place. And this is neither the time nor the place. So we'll see how this plays out. I think there's going to be a lot of posturing. I think that Nancy Pelosi is going to point fingers. It's all the president's fault. Of course, of course, of course. Everything's his fault, right? Everything is his fault. It's so good to have all of you guys. Hello in Idaho. Great to have you here. Over a quarter of the unemployment, you say, is from California alone. California is struggling. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, Disney is talking about laying off 28,000 people out there in California. Gavin Newsom has shut it all down. There was an interesting story the other day about Shasta County up in Northern California, and the people there are like, we're not having this. They've had effectively a rebellion, and the county sheriff is like, what can I do? I can't close down these businesses. People aren't going to let me close down these businesses. And so some law officials are saying this is like anarchy. People are still, engaging in commerce. God help them. God help them. Anyway, Stephen, thank you so much. I've never been one to turn down a compliment. Thank you very much. Michigan's governor is authoritarian. You're right, John, she is. And you know what? She's getting struck down by the courts. This is why it is so important. I come back to the court, right? It's so important that we have another judge confirmed there, because this could turn into complete bedlam come November, come December. You could be knocking on January 20th. And let's not forget, all right, dare I say it? I got to say it, because you got to know the reality of the situation. If we do not have a declared president by January 20th, Nancy Pelosi gets the seat, which really would not be a good thing for the country or for anyone else, or one's taxes, or one's liberty, one's freedom, which is most surely under attack right now in ways that I never really thought possible in my lifetime, and certainly worries me for future generations. Again, because of this authoritarian, fascist-like creep where they think they can tell us how to live our lives. And so the basics, right? Freedom of speech. They can tell you what you can say, what you can't say. What do you think this cancel culture is all about? You're allowed to talk about this. You're not allowed to talk about that. I'm sorry. I'm allowed to talk about whatever I want to talk about, right? Because you know what? I was born in the United States of America, and I have my First Amendment rights. By the way, I'm also free to protect myself, and I'm also free to prosper. Last I checked, thanks to the beauty of capitalism. My goodness, capitalism now. Capitalism, which is the foundation of this country, is under threat. You got the Pope. And I grew up Catholic. My grandmother loved Pope John Paul II. I mean, he was such a figurehead in our lives growing up. So I feel bad about this, but you got the Pope out there saying that capitalism isn't the way, and that coronavirus has proven it. Forgive me, but do you really think, does anyone think for 2 seconds that there would miraculously be all these people just working actively on a vaccine if there wasn't some kind of financial reward in the end? I mean, I think it's wonderful to have such a great assumption about people's altruism, but, let's not kid ourselves. There's a reason, Steve Jobs worked as hard as he did, or Jeff Bezos, or Bill Gates, or any of these people, right? There is a financial incentive, and this is the beauty of capitalism, and capitalism is very much hand in hand with freedom. I think they go together. This is why China's economic system fundamentally will never work, because they don't have the freedom to truly be a capitalist society. So good to have you all here. Jim, you're saying that coronavirus stimulus is American, you're saying American people, not for Democratic pork. Yeah, I mean, the pork in this thing was kind of insane. And that, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. You can't load it up like that, because we are all going to pay the price. My goodness, I mean, the Federal Reserve has been printing money like there's no tomorrow. Then you've got the government, Congress, printing money, handouts like there's no tomorrow. There's got to be some kind of compromise here. And Nancy Pelosi cannot just say, I'm going to stuff everything in this thing and get, everything I want. No, let's let the people vote on it. How about that? Okay, tomorrow we get a vice president debate coming, right? Vice presidential stakes are really, really high in this one. Are you guys going to be watching? It's live from Salt Lake City. The first, coronavirus debate in that we had the last one, but now we actually have Pence, who could have been exposed, et cetera. So you have this whole back and forth going on. Kamala Harris, her team saying, we need plexiglass. And Pence's team saying, yeah, you don't. Really? I don't need it anyway. He said, I'm good, no plexiglass. She can have it if she wants. There's been a whole thing about, do they stand up, do they sit down? And so, I mean, my gosh, you'd think they're negotiating the coronavirus stimulus package, just the optics of this whole debate. I do think that Pence has a gift on the debate stage in terms of being an excellent orator. Don't forget, he was a radio show host for many, many years. And so he has that background. He definitely knows how to stick to the points he wants to advance. As someone who's interviewed him multiple times, I've seen that. He has a level of concentration that's really important. And also, importantly, he has a style that is very amenable to, I think, a lot of Americans, because he really is kind of what you see is what you get. He's down to earth. He's not very high maintenance. He kind of, and I say this in the best possible way, he's sort of like that plain vanilla, right? Like he's just Mike Pence. And you trust him and you like him, and he's got some continuity and some steadiness. And then you've got Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris, in some ways, I think was miscast in the vice presidential role, because she's kind of what we would call in the entertainment business a big personality, somebody who just sort of sucks all the oxygen out of the room. And she comes in and she is a presence. It's interesting because Mike Pence, he certainly has presence, but it's Donald Trump, really, right, that he sort of plays to the side of. And so Donald Trump is that big presence and that big personality. And Mike Pence is there sort of as part of the supporting cast in a very positive and very influential and good way. But when you look at the Biden-Kamala Harris relationship, it seems a little more complicated. I mean, she herself has referred to it as a Harris administration. Joe Biden has referred to it as a Harris administration. You start to wonder, really, is it a Harris administration? She definitely packs a lot of punch on the debate stage. We all saw her in the Kavanaugh hearings. Remember those? She was incredibly aggressive, and she went after Kavanaugh in a way that I think really catapulted her, right, onto the national stage, and a lot of people in the party, in the Democratic Party, noticed her, but it was all about her. I mean, she wasn't interested in questioning Kavanaugh, just really pointing some pretty malicious accusations at him. And so we saw that. We also saw her on the debate stage with the guy who's sort of now her boss, if they get the gig, her boss right now in the campaign. She went after Joe Biden really hard in a skilled, very determined, very plotted way. Let's not forget she was a prosecutor. Okay, so she has those skills, she's honed those skills, and she used those skills to go after the guy that is now the top of the ticket. How did it do for her? What do you guys think? Seth, good to see you here tonight. Seth Barron writing, Harris laughs at everything. She thinks that everything is a joke. You can't take her seriously. Yeah, she should work on that laugh. There's my laugh. Hopefully that's not a Harris one. Anyway, she has a tendency to really go in there for the jugular, and nothing wrong with that. But America they don't always go for that, especially when you got a guy like, it was Joe Biden, right? I think a lot of people in the Democrat Party were like, whoa, this woman, like, she went after him really hard on an issue that, frankly, he should be vulnerable on. I mean, he's out there going on and on and on about how much he cares about civil rights. And yet, when it came to integrating schools in the 1970s, he was against that, right? He said states' rights matter. He couldn't articulate this, by the way. This was amazing, because I'm sitting there watching going, can't you articulate your position? You stood up for state rights over federal government rights. That's what you were trying to say, but he couldn't say it. She just had him backed into a corner, and he had nowhere to go, okay? So if she does, and people didn't really like it. I mean, she got a little tiny bump, right, nicely after the debate, and then she sunk, because I think it bothered people. It fundamentally didn't sit so well with them. Nobody wants to see some kind of bloodbath on stage, right? We saw the other night, nobody wanted to see that from either candidate, and certainly not from the moderator. And so the question now is, does she engage in this line of attack? And if she does it help Mike Pence? I think it does, because he's very much a gentleman. He's very even. He's very even keel. She's not going to be able to rattle him. And if she sort of backs him into a corner of some sort, I don't think it plays. I really don't. But the other thing that's going on here, and the reason why the stakes are so high, is you've got two candidates that are running for vice president, and both of them have bosses that, let's face it, are getting up there in age. One of them is still recovering from coronavirus. The other, well, his critics would say he has dementia. I don't know about that, but he's up there, 77? And I'm not an ageist, but I do believe you ought to be able to string a few sentences together if you're going to be running for president of the United States. And he's never really been able to string two sentences together, though it does seem remarkably worse these days, given all the blooper reels that we see. So good. Again, I just want to welcome everyone here. You guys really do not like Kamala. I see Bobby saying some things. HG, thank you so much. It's good to have you here, and I appreciate the support. You know what? There's so much bias right now in the media. And I'll always be honest with you guys, right? Like you'll know where my bias is coming from. My bias is all about the economy. My bias is all about ensuring our freedoms, okay? And these to me are pretty basic things. And I'll tell you what, if I had a Republican that was going to shut down our freedoms and redistribute wealth and shut down our economy, then I'd be looking at the Democrat. I'm for whoever is for America, whoever can help us achieve prosperity and really unleash the wonderful creativity and ingenuity that is the American spirit, right? And right now, that's not what we have on the left. I would like to see those moderators tomorrow night. Unfortunately, they probably won't, but I would like to see them push Kamala Harris hard on the economy. Do you know that she actually introduced a bill, talking about stimulus, right, for a $2,000 a month guaranteed payment forever until coronavirus is over? This was with Bernie Sanders, card-carrying member of the Socialist Party. You see where this is going? Meanwhile, Biden's tax plan, the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, my friends over there, Steve Moore, Art Laffer, great group of economists, Casey Mulligan out of U Chicago issued a report today with the committee. And sure enough, they went through Biden's tax plan in great detail. The conclusion was, if he's successful in that, implementing a $4 trillion tax plan, then guess what? You're going to see, on average, an $8,000 decline in Americans' household income. And he says he's not going after anybody who makes less than $400,000. Excuse me, he's not thinking about the ramifications of his policies. So they did a very detailed report. I've got an article on it on TRISHintel.com, so I encourage you to check it out there. But this is not a good thing. They need to pin her down on that. Just exactly what are you guys planning for taxes? Because it's not a plan that's going to work. Just look at what Trump and Pence have been able to accomplish through a much better system, right? Do you know the Fed came out with a report in the last week, and they reported that middle class and lower class Americans' incomes grew far more in the first 3 years of the Trump presidency up through 2019 than they ever did during the 8 years of Biden and Obama. Okay? And then Joe Biden, remember how we had to sit through him saying the other night, it's like the guy has amnesia. He thinks, one, that he handed Trump a great economy. Believe me, he didn't. Believe me. There were so many things that they could have done during those 8 years that they never did. Then he said, he's out there on the campaign trail saying, I don't believe this idea that manufacturing jobs can't come back. That was his own platform. He actually said it in 2010, when he was out speaking to people. The Obama administration pushed that message that we needed to change as a society because these jobs are just never coming back. I was so sick of hearing that. You know what? And that is why Trump succeeded, because he said, you don't have to buy that. Well, of course these jobs can come back. And I look at it and I say, why should you have to have a PhD in order to be able to take care of your family in this country? That's not right. And we're not going in the right direction if we're not able to ensure that our middle class is a strong, thriving middle class, and we need to ensure this meritocracy so everybody's got a shot, right? Kamala Harris, is she going to do that? I doubt it, but they need to push her on this tomorrow night. They got these moderators. I know, the media is what the media is, I guess. If I were the RNC, I'd be thinking hard about who exactly I want moderating. I mean, if you're going to put a registered registered Democrat on there, then you ought to put a registered Republican too, right? Just in the interest of fairness. Lots of super rich taking huge profits on very long positions because it will never be lower. Yeah, interesting, on the market. The market's going to be all over the place, though. I'm going to tell you this for a little while. And the reason is because the market is worried about, that we may not have a clear winner on November 3rd. Because already, you think of the thousands of lawyers that are on the Joe Biden payroll, and it's evident. Just watch what Hillary Clinton said back in August to Showtime's The Circus. Her quote was, "He should not concede no matter what." I mean, if they're not willing to concede and they're lawyering up and they're going to drag this thing out as long as they can, what is that doing to the country? I mean, I feel like, and you guys know I've reported on so many of these banana republics down in Latin America. I feel like this is one of those places right now. This is not normal. I mean, I'm sure you've never felt like this, right? In terms of wondering about this change in power, or whether there's a consistency. I mean, we don't know. That's the problem here. And the market doesn't know. And the market, everybody is trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I invest in? If Joe Biden gets in, we're going to have this massive environmental plan that may, favor certain companies over others. And so they're trying to figure out that versus, the reality of, I'm sorry, but we will not have as much economic output in that environment. And that's why I, again, encourage you to go back to the U Chicago Economist report, right? That's looking at all this and saying, what is the cost on society of lower output? And there's a significant cost, and the market is worried about, one, if Biden wins, what happens to taxes? What happens to GDP? What happens to individual incomes? That's a serious concern. And then the other thing that the market worries about is just this plain old, do we have an answer on November 4th when we wake up in the morning? Brian writes that the world is a stage and the Democrats know how to play it very well. They do it every day. It's because they have the media. That's why, I'm going to say this again. It wouldn't have been the way I would have chosen things to happen, but I really love that I can be here with all of you and that we can have this really transparent, honest conversation. I love being able to get your feedback in real time because I'm so used to this sort of only being one way. So it's a new experience and a good one. And I think we have to kind of stick together, and we have to think about how we protect our economy, how we protect our lives, and how we protect our future here, because America is going down a path from which it cannot return. Really, I mean, again, back to banana republics. I saw it 20 years ago in Venezuela. Hugo Chavez, how bad could it be, right? I was working at Goldman Sachs at the time on the trading desk, and we were trading Latin American sovereign debt. And Hugo Chavez came to power, and we thought, how bad can he be? And sure enough, he was really bad, okay? And now Maduro is running things, and it's really bad. That's so sad. Like, we can't allow that here. Because if we do, guess who's going to take over the world? I used to say that if we weren't careful, one day we would wake up and be France, and China would be the next United States of America. Well, now I'm saying, if we're not careful, I'd be happy to be France, because we're going to wake up one day and we're going to be Venezuela. And China is going to be the next United States of America. And we're not going to have a whole lot to say then, because Big Brother China is going to be watching every single thing we do. We will have no privacy. And you want to talk authoritarian? You want to talk about not having any rights whatsoever, about not having any freedoms? We don't want to live in a world like that. So we need to protect the world that we have. And what has happened in this election is that we have gotten away from the policy issues that will affect our future. We have allowed the Democrats to take this whole scene hostage. And so if you are a Trump supporter, you're a bad person. If you're a capitalist, you are a bad person. If you believe in individual rights, you're a bad person, because society is supposed to be bigger and better than anything else. Society as a whole. Says who? Says Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I'm sorry, I don't need her making my decisions for me. Right? I mean, that is not a world in which we can live. So as much as they're going to tell you this is about character, this is about, how he quarantined or didn't quarantine during coronavirus when he got... No, it is about our economy. It is about, do we want socialism? Do we want capitalism? I choose capitalism every single time. And I hope you do too. Okay, it's so good to have you all here. Very, very, very nice to have you here. I really appreciate you tuning in. It's great to see all these comments. And you know what? I want to remind you, please go to the podcast. You can see, get it at trishintel.com. You can get the Trish Regan Show, Trish Intel, at Spotify, also on iTunes, also on iHeartRadio. I'm everywhere. But again, follow me on social media. Go to the website, trishintel.com. We're putting up all the stories that matter to you, and you can subscribe to the podcast. You can get my emails, and I want us to keep on talking because it is an important time, and I care so much. I really do. I care so much about every single one of you and making sure that we have freedom in this country, that we can say what we think, that we encourage diversity of thought, and that we encourage everyone to be the best they can be. That is a real meritocracy, and that is the United States of America. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you back here soon.